Angeles Lakers select Bronny James.
Lakers drafting Bronny. Bill Plaschke is here with the latest in Los Angeles. You called it chaos, Bill. We know all about chaos. And also, when your coach says you should shoot more. What's going on with Caitlin Clark? Around the horn? Here we go. It's historical. It's heartwarming. It's the brightest of headlines for a franchise desperately in need of some good news, but it's not very smart. And for two main people involved, it's not very fair. Those are the words of our Bill Plaschke. Lakers' decision to draft Bronny James is a costly move towards chaos. Bill, you wrote it for the LA Times. Tell it to the world now here on our show. Can you talk about what Bronny to the Lakers means?
Well, it's great for LeBron. It's heartwarming. It's historic. It's all that. It's so unfair to his child, and it's so unfair to his coach. Bronny's trying to learn his game. He's still really raw, and he's got to do it under the pressure and the hot lights of his father, the greatest player ever, sitting on the bench beside him, sitting in the locker room next to him, watching over his shoulder, the whole media watching, the whole world watching. Every move he makes is going to be scrutinized. He's going to be called nepotism over and over again. He's under so much pressure. It's so unfair to him. And it's so unfair to J.J. Redick, who's a guy trying to learn how to be a coach in the NBA, and he's got to deal with the overwhelming hype and distraction of a second-round draft pick. He'll be answering questions about Bronny every pregame, every postgame. They can send Bronny to the G League, and people follow him there. They'll follow J.J. And then, well, how much playing time does he get? And if he doesn't play him, is LeBron mad at him? And is that drama? There's so much drama here, Tony. There's just too much. Bronny said earlier, he said it's a lot. The pressure is a lot. It's too much. And Bronny also said he wanted to make a name for himself. This is no way to make a name for himself. He needed to go to some outpost like Utah or San Antonio or Oklahoma City and learn the game.
One follow-up, Bill. You wrote, critics will call it nepotism. You said just now, you brought up the word nepotism. Do you see it as that?
No, it was not. I see it more as they're trying to keep LeBron with the Lakers. They're trying to ensure he stays with the Lakers and doesn't opt out of his contract. So for the Lakers, it's business. It's not, and there's so much nepotism in this league. I wouldn't accuse him of that. It's just basic.
Well, let's see if the panel agrees with you. Woody Page, around the horn to you on the draft and what it means.
Respectfully, Bill, I think this is a positive, not a negative, as you pointed out over and over again. I think LeBron will stay in L.A. and play with his son. His son's probably going to play in the G League for much of the year, like a 55th pick will normally do. And Bronny's had pressure on himself since he's been a teenager because we have looked for this moment because his father said years ago, I want to play with my son before I leave the game. And that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't see the negatives. I don't see the chaos that you're talking about. I see that there will be a interest of when they're in the game together, like the Griffeys were at one point. I think that he will have his best teacher, his father, right there to help him away from games and when they're on road trips. And I just see this as a major positive, not a negative. I think if he'd have gone anywhere else, I think that he would have been lost, really. You talked about being in an outpost. I think he's found himself in L.A. with his father.
Harry Lyles Jr., around the horn to you on the Lakers drafting Bronny.
I think all of the things that Bill highlighted as concerns are a very real thing, and I think something that perhaps people aren't considering enough, especially as it pertains to what Bronny wants out of all of this. I think that is sort of the key here, but as somebody who obviously, like the rest of us, have watched LeBron grow up, I mean, this is somebody, it would be one thing if this was just some other NBA player that was playing with his son. We're talking about LeBron James. We're talking about somebody that came from nothing, that did not have a father himself, that has been in a national spotlight since he was 16 years old, when we didn't have social media, when it was pretty hard for anybody in youth sports to actually be spotlighted in such a way, to now come to fruition, have everything accomplished in his career that he has, to now have the opportunity to play with your son. I'm sorry, I think that is really cool. I just do. There's no way around it. My biggest concern, though, is still, is this what Bronny wants? Is it what he doesn't want? I think it's hard for anybody to sort of cast judgment on whether that is the case or not. But I think that this is cool. And I think it would be a lot worse if they would have used that first-round pick on him instead of number 55, because all these second-round picks, they almost never amount to nothing. Obviously, Nikola Jokic being one of the rare instances where it does.
Well, let me use the word again, because critics will call it nepotism. Will you call this nepotism, Harry Lyles Jr.?
I think that you would be naive to say that there's not some nepotism involved in this, yes, especially with the way that Rich Paul, as Bob Myers reported yesterday, I believe on NBA Today or during the show, that he was calling GMs, Rich Paul was calling GMs and saying, hey, if you draft Bronny James, he's going to go to Australia, which I also don't know that he necessarily would do.
And Kevin Clark, around the horn to you.
It's a lot of nepotism, but I'm not offended by it. I think that there are different rules for superstars. If you're surprised by that, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that life is not fair. LeBron James runs the Los Angeles Lakers organization. We knew that when they hired his podcast partner a couple weeks ago as head coach, and we know it now. That's fine. I'm a big college football fan. Using a roster spot to keep other stars happy is what they do there. A quarter of some rosters are built around that. This is fine. The idea here is to keep LeBron happy, keep him in LA, expand on his legacy. I think if I had to question anything, it's going all in on a guy who's going to be 40 this year. Can you get better than the 6th seed in Los Angeles? Probably not, but we know what the stakes were. We know what the point is. I just think this isn't that offensive.
Bill Plaschke, back to you. Clark says this is
I'll
fine.
go back to the point of what does Bronny want? And he gave a hint of that when he said at the Combine, he said the pressure is a lot and he wants to be his own man. This is not the way to do it. I can't imagine he's thrilled with this. This cannot be good for him.
Bill, Rob Pelinka specifically in the post-press conference talking about how L.A. wants the drama. They want the scene. The L.A. has been the place that has been a show above, and that would be a good thing. You don't see it that way.
For a child who's trying to learn the game, a year after having a heart attack on the floor, trying to come back, trying to figure out his game, this is a hot box, and it's not a good place that's
Woody
conducive
Page,
for him
last
to
word.
learn.
You're shaking your head no.
Develop.
Well, in regard to nepotism, though, really, I mean, have we worried about it with the Milwaukee Bucks and players they have signed that are brothers of their star player? Have we worried about it when general managers will have players on their team that actually are related to them? George Karl having a son on the Lakers, I don't know that that was a problem. I think we've seen it throughout the NBA for years in other sports.
We'll have that as the last word on the number 55 pick in the draft, the headline of this draft. It's almost impossible to conceive. But let's talk the draft in full now. A draft, somebody's got to have to pop, right? At this draft, everyone's review is this is not the best draft, it's not the second best draft, it's way down the line. Somebody's going to have to pop. So, Harry, where do you want to start with a winner in this draft?
Tony, I want to start with the Utah Jazz, and it's not because Kyle Filipowski fell quicker than Woody's whiteboard just did, but I want to talk about them because of Cody Williams and because of Isaiah Collier. These are two guys that I think if you would have told people a year ago that they would have ended up on the same team in the NBA draft, you would have been shocked because both of these guys you could have argued would have gone or should have gone in the top 10 as the only panelist who actually saw Isaiah Collier play in person when he was in high school. I can tell you that this is a guy that a lot of people believed could have been the number 1 overall pick had things gone differently for him. Obviously, a lot of people had trouble at USC last year, but I think if you are the Utah Jazz looking at the players that you got and the potential that's there, you got to absolutely be happy with what they got
Kevin Clark,
out of
who won this draft.
Agree with Harry. I love Cody Williams. I think he's going to end up being one of the best players, if not the best player in this draft. But who won the draft? Teams that didn't have to rely on this draft. Teams that handled their business going into the draft. A team like the New York Knicks or a team that didn't need to plug holes. For the first time in what seems to be over a decade, the Orlando Magic didn't need to hit on a draft pick for this year. It's that kind of thing. This was a very weird draft. This was the oldest age of the first round, been over a decade since the 2013 draft, which, by the way, was one of the worst drafts of all time. Anthony Bennett went first overall. There were 4 players over the age of 22 in the first round. That's as many as the previous 9 combined. This was an old draft. I don't think teams really knew how to approach this. They were taking seniors, juniors, international guys. I think this is going to end up being a bad draft. If you had to rely on it like the Hawks did, you're in trouble.
Okay, so a team that didn't have to rely on it, like, you just volunteered the Orlando Magic. That's very interesting for me. Kevin Clark, our Magic season tickets holder. Bill Plaschke to you.
I like the Indiana Pacers. They had no first-round draft pick.
Wow.
They took 3 second-round picks. 3 second-round picks that all were ranked possibly in the top 25 of the draft. They got Furphy, they got Newton, they got and Freeman, the kid from Akron. They've got a stacked roster, and they got 3 guys who can contribute right now. And he got him in the second round. Wow. Steal.
There's never been a draft like this in all of our years giving our grades. And we know you can't grade the draft the day after, but we do it for fun. I've never heard this before. The teams that didn't draft won the draft. The teams that drafted in the second round won the draft. Woody Page, your review of this draft.
Tony, my same thought. We don't have a consensus here. There's no consensus anywhere in the NBA. This draft was as thin as Bol. I mean, we are going to look back on this and say that was not one of the great drafts of all time. But I'm going to go in a totally different direction. What do the San Antonio Spurs need to do? They need to surround Wemby with some perimeter players who can actually help him. And that's exactly what they did with 4 players. They didn't draft 4 players, but they signed, right after the draft, they signed an undrafted free agent who is a perimeter player. Castle is a solid player. They got another player from another country, as they have done in the past, and effectively have turned them into great NBA players. So I think that the Spurs overall helped themselves because they got 4 guys that can come in and be young along with Wemby and develop and be something in the next 2 or 3 years.
There we go. Once again, never heard draft analysis on our show like we just got here. The team that had the best draft, they signed a player that wasn't drafted. That was the best decision. Woody, is Natasha there to pick up your chalkboard? I need to know where your chalkboard went. I need to do a wellness check on your chalkboard, and I need to make sure it's okay. And it's a chalkboard about your birthday. There's Natasha. There she is, the star of our studio in Denver. It's about your 78th birthday, which was yesterday. Well, happy birthday, Woody.
That's the way I was going to die.
Happy birthday,
it was going
Woody.
to hit me in the head.
Take a break.
Knock me
Fire
out.
till next. Love seeing Natasha. More from the NBA, the Knicks, and the move for Mikal Bridges. Is New York now the best competition for the Celtics in the East? It is an idea that has been foisted upon our ears by many of our friends and people of your ilk around the horn. To Kevin Clark on this move from New York.
Yeah, they're number 2 in the East, but maybe they were already. I'm surprised the number of people who are ready to say that it's 1A or 1B, or that somehow the Knicks have become some sort of co-favorite in the East. I don't see that at all. We spent the entire regular season and playoffs underrating the Boston Celtics. They win the championship, and then a week later we decide to start underrating the Celtics again. I ran into a source of mine, a guy named Tim Bontemps in the hallway here at the Seaport, and he told me that here's the thinking here. If you're a B-plus team, which the Knicks are now, over a 5-year period, if you're locked in, if you have an identity, at some point you're going to make a finals. But I don't really see that. There's too many teams who could potentially come up in the Eastern Conference. Maybe it's an Orlando Magic. Maybe it's a Celtics.
Okay, all right. First off, you're doing a 30 for 30 documentary on this, which I appreciate. Secondly, you brought in Bontemps. I'll take Tim on the show, and then you shut down his idea, which is an incredibly strong move from Clark. Harry Lyles Jr. on the Knicks move.
I think the Knicks are still where they were, number 2 in the Eastern Conference. The thing that sticks out to me about this is you literally paid a Kevin Durant price for Mikal Bridges, man. Like, this is a 3-and-D player. Kevin Durant is one of the 15 best basketball players to ever play the game, and you just gave up 4 first-round picks in the same way. Look, I think that this matches what the Knicks are trying to do in terms of beating the Celtics, which you need guys that are going to be versatile defenders like that. They're not going to be 8 deep. It's going to help them compete against this team, but I don't know that you pay that price for a guy that is not a superstar.
Woody Page.
I'm worried about these young journalists. Bill and I learned you don't reveal your sources in public, and there's Kevin Clark.
Yeah.
But I think in New York City, all the bridges lead into Manhattan. They don't go out. Brooklyn,
they go
George
both ways.
Washington, I think that
Famously,
they are.
but I see what you did there, yeah.
I would say the Celtics are 1A and the Knicks are 1B. I think they have moved up
Really?
the ladder and
Wow.
well, teams.
Wait, wouldn't the Celtics be 1? If they just won, wouldn't they be 1? You're not even giving them 1, you're giving them 1A. All right, Bill Plaschke, how about you?
Yes, Chef, the Knicks are 1B. They're right there. This guy puts them over the top. One of only 4 players that score at least 1,500 points, 153s, and 75 steals in the last 2 years. He's played over 400 straight games, never misses a game, hadn't missed a game in his career. He's durable.
That is
he
tantalizing
scores.
for a team, the Knicks, that had as many injury issues by the end of the season.
good.
And then, of course, Thibodeau and a player like Bridges. And no one even mentioned Villanova. The connection is growing. I hear you all. But, I mean, the idea of 1A and 1B, I think, Clark, you said it, doesn't give enough respect to the team that's won the championship. Number one, the Boston
Vanilla
Celtics.
connection.
We'll move on.
Villanova connection should be a banned word, Tony, by the way.
Is
Just
that
throwing
right?
out there.
You throwing it out there? Good. I'm glad it's been thrown out there by you. This is what happens when you throw that out there. All right. Storm 89, Fever 77. Jewel Lord had an explosion last night. 34 points. Seattle back on a winning streak. Something Indy coach Christy Sides said after the game that Caitlin Clark needs to shoot more. Take a listen to this.
Caitlin Clark needs to shoot at minimum 15 shots a game for us. I mean, she's got to get shots. We've got to do a better job of setting her up and setting some really good screens for her to get her open.
How do you hear that? Harry Lyles Jr. around the horn of you.
I mean, duh. Caitlin Clark is averaging almost 24 points a game when she is shooting 15 or more shots in a game. But how are we just now coming to this conclusion? Because we're 19 games into the season and she's only done that 6 times. You are the head coach. She literally said that they need to figure out ways to come up and help her get the ball. But she also critiqued the way that she was shooting those deep threes and all those things, even in not just early in the season, the preseason. She is really shooting the confidence, not just of Caitlin Clark, but somebody, I don't know, Aaliyah Boston, who was the rookie of the year last year and an all-star starter. She doesn't look like herself. Christy Sides is absolutely just blowing this thing
So
up
this
right
is
now.
on coach then, when she,
Yes.
not on player. Woody Page, how about you?
I'm going to buy the coach in this situation. I watched that Chicago Fever game, and I thought, why doesn't she try to get more open at the end of the game instead of passing the basketball? And so I agree that she needs to be less selfish. She needs to go after more shots in every game. Harry pointed out that
more
she
selfish,
rarely goes
yeah.
over 15 shots. Yeah, I think she's got to put it on herself to go out and shoot
Bill
more
Plaschke,
often,
how do
because
you
she
see
is
it?
the best on that team.
The greatest scorer in college basketball history took 4 shots in the second half yesterday, was the 4th in field goal attempts on her team. He's shooting 8 fewer shots a game than she did in college. This is on the coach. They got to figure out a way to get her open. They got to figure out set more screens for her, get her working. I suggest they bring Lisa Bluter out of retirement, her Iowa coach.
As a consultant?
Let her coach the Fever. No,
Oh,
as a coach.
I've heard this
I've
before
coached the
too,
team.
but all right. So then again, you're putting this on the coach that Caitlin
Yes.
Clark is 22nd in the league in field goal attempts this year. Kevin Clark, you heard the coach last night say she's got to shoot more. Put it on her. Put it on the player. How do you hear it?
She's right, but she's acting like she's talking to somebody else who's the head coach. She's the head coach. This is your job, Coach Sides. I'm putting her on notice. I'm putting general manager Lynn Dunn on notice. She should not, Caitlin Clark, should not be leading her team in shots in only 6 of 19 games so far. That is basketball malpractice. She should be playing more selfish. She should get in that kind of confident game she had in college. It was just a couple of months ago. I just let her make mistakes, do all that stuff. I just think this is a disaster right now.
Something that should be said though, that they went on that winning streak last 2 weeks ago, I should say, and those were games where Clark was shooting fewer than she shot earlier in the season. So there were some wins as the schedule eased up as well when she was shooting less. A few less shots from maybe Harry Lyles about what is and what isn't a banned word. Kevin Clark, thank you for today. Plaschke Page showdown next.
Corner.
The 140th meeting in showdown between Plaschke and Page. Head to head, Plaschke 74, Page 65. Woo-hoo. Don't throw out the record books. Keep the record books. You guys are the record books. Let's go around the horn. Panama 2, USA 1. Crushing defeat. An early lead, given back. Tim Weah's straight red card, forcing him to play a man short for 75 minutes. Silly, Greg Berhalter called it. What do you call it, Bill?
Terrible foul, terrible loss. They got to beat Uruguay now. Berhalter put them in a tough position, and they could have won the game. They led 1-0, even shorthanded. They should have won the game.
Woody Page?
Total stupidity that not only did they lose this game, but him not being able to play in the next game, that suspension, I think it just ruined their team. They basically had a double loss because of him.
Mm-hmm. I go to Woody for total stupidity, I guess, is something I could say there. We'll split the point. Showdown 2. This is how we end the show. This show goes right in the toilet here. This is the seats that are available, entire row, at the Cleveland Guardians minor league affiliate in Lake County. Woody, would you sit in the toilet?
Absolutely. I think this is a great idea. And you would have the fans sitting there going, we're number 2. We're number 2.
Okay, all right. Yes, and Bill Plaschke, you got jokes?
I once missed a triple play at Dodger Stadium because I was in on the toilet. If these toilets worked, I'd sit on if they worked.
So you don't have jokes. You were taking it very seriously, and for that, I want nothing to do with it. Bill, Woody gets one win back in the rivalry. Go ahead, Joe.
Strange, odd occurrence in the Senior Open, U.S. Senior Open in golf today when Frank Binzel Jr., a journeyman pro, had back-to-back aces. It's an oddity that you have back-to-back par threes, but to actually have aces. Then he went 5-5-5. He ended up shooting 9 over par and not even making the cut. What a day of positives and negatives for Frank Binzel Jr. Maybe next time you could actually shoot under par when you have 2 aces, not 1, in a round of golf.
Wait, what did he shoot? 9 over? While having 2 hole-in-ones? Who's hit a hole-in-one here on this show? Clark, you? Lyle?
Yeah.
Yeah? What? You say it probably.
Miniature
What
golf.
is your bad one?
Long story.
Yeah.
Miniature
You
golf, I
just
had
told
one.
us about your hole-in-one on the toilet there. All right, that's it. We'll see you guys. 71.5 hour break. See you Monday.
I mean, keep an eye, too, on LeBron James, the first player to average 25 points in a season while being the oldest player in the NBA. And now he gets the opportunity to play with his son, Bronny, taken 55th overall in yesterday's draft. Bobby, thank you so much. More on Bronny, family celebrating a very special night. And, of course, today the news on what number he will wear in purple and gold. That was announced. It is number 9. Mike and Frank with much more in tonight's PTI bonus topic.
All right, Frank, you have any issues with the Lakers drafting Bronny James?
I mean, they could have waited another 15 minutes if nobody drafted him and just signed him, but I understand why they did it. It's the same reason they hired J.J. Redick. They want to keep LeBron happy. LeBron opts in.
That's the only part I care about. All the rest of this, the Griffeys already did the father-son. It's great. LeBron is going to prevent anybody on that end of that bench, Frank, from being upset that Bronny's there. You're going to cross the old man? No, you aren't. But I hear what you're saying. Is it the best thing for him?
Yeah.
Is it the best thing for him? Or might some other situation have been better? I don't know. I'm asking the question. But don't tell me it's the biggest thing since D-Day. The biggest thing is his recovery and his continued health.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think we've talked a lot about, Caitlin Clark and the X that's on her back. There's going to be a target now. You have the name James on your back in Summer League, regular season.
Yeah.
Hope it works out for him. That's it. We're done. Back to you.
Fellas, thank you. More NBA ahead on SportsCenter. Busy week for the Knicks. They still have one big item left on their offseason checklist. Our front office insider will explain. Let's go to baseball. We're following a developing story with the best team in MLB. The Phillies have placed both Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber on the injured list after they were hurt last night. Harper strained his hamstring running the bases. Schwarber strained his groin making a throw. Big blow for a team that hasn't been 100% healthy all season. They lost Trey Turner for 6 weeks this spring. Harper extended a 12-game hitting streak prior to the injury. He's one of 5 players with an OPS above 1,100 in June, sitting between Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. By the way, Philly hosts the Marlins tonight, starting just minutes from now here on ESPN+. Baseball insider Jeff Passan joining us now. Jeff, what are you hearing about a potential timeline for Harper's return from this injury?
Kevin, there was significant concern last night after Bryce Harper came up limp running down the first base line that he could miss a lot of time. That concern was allayed today. Imaging came back and showed a mild strain of his hamstring. The likelihood is he's going to miss the 14 games between now and the All-Star break. But the idea of Bryce Harper coming back from this hamstring injury within a month's time is certainly realistic. And look, the Phillies have dealt with injuries this season. They lost Trey Turner for 6 weeks. Edmundo Sosa filled in. They've lost JT Realmuto, and he's expected to be back in July or so. And they're getting Cody Clemens off the injured list, and he should step in at first base and fill in for Bryce Harper while he's down for this time.
Yeah, tough week in Philly. You could say the same thing. Tough week in the Bronx, where the Yankees, they've lost 4 straight, 9 of their last 11. What's the concern level here in that Yankees clubhouse right now?
Mild. And it's because this was a team, Kevin, that started off at 50-22. They were on a 112-win pace. Well, guess what? They're still on a 100-win pace. And I understand things don't look great right now. Giancarlo Stanton on the injured list. No one knows when he's going to come back. Garrett Cole was throwing 93-mile-per-hour fastballs in his last start. Not great. But the reality is the Yankees are here in this position right now for two reasons. Number one, their starting pitching has been spectacular. And even though Luis Gil is blown up in his last two starts, they expect him to rebound. And the two big reasons are Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, arguably the two best hitters in baseball. They are still in the lineup. As long as they're healthy, the Yankees feel like they're going to be not just in playoff contention, Kevin, but in contention to win the American League East.
And New York will try to snap that losing streak tonight in Toronto. Marcus Stroman is on the bump. Jeff, we appreciate it.
Still to come on.